So if anyone doesn't know on the left, that is Georg there. Hey guys. If only we'd known we were going to wear the same thing. And then yeah, that's Emanuel on the right.
Everybody's dropping their mics off.
We're making sure they can hear you.
Do you want to put the thing back on top?
Oh yeah, you know, we'll do that, yeah. Excuse me, 1 second.
Actually, can you bring back the preview so we don't clean out of it? Yes, with it. That's good. Cool. I see a big t-shirt right now. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna mess with the camera. There we go. There's a lot of us in here. That's like maximum zoom. So big room. See? Whoop. All right. So guys, you better have some questions now. You ended up coming in early because they didn't have any more questions for Gabe. So maybe this will be really short. You know. So any more questions? Any questions at all about the game in general to these guys?
So just to start, this is Georg Zoeller, audit combat designer, and I'm Emanuel Lusinchi, the associate lead designer. So if you have questions about pretty much any part of design, combat, and so on, well, we're here. No question. Okay.
Thank you very much. Nothing. Really.
Anything you have to ask.
Anything at all.
Well, when I was playing,
1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get the camera. Here's Jen's here.
When I was playing the Jedi Guardian before, I noticed that okay, it was just level 10, so I just picked my advanced class. How is the progression going to be if I want to take the tank route? How long is it going to take usually to
become like a really effective tank? Is that what you mean?
Because I had difficult keeping the aggro of the mobs, for example.
At 10 you will.
That's a good question. We actually get that quite a bit. So to understand kind of a bit of the background there, up to level 10 everyone is what you traditionally would call DPS. And everyone's damage potential is roughly in the same area. How you become a tank is by not even by picking your advanced class, right? You become a tank by spending points in the tree that is marked defense for that class. So the more points you spend in that tree, which happens over time, the less you become DPS, the more tank you become. That means at level 10, 11, 12, you're not a tank. You're a DPS character with some options for tanking, but you're really not much better than anyone else out there. Also, you're not much worse. You're kind of spending into it over time, and there's of course some constraints that prevent us from basically making you a tank right at level 10, because everyone has points to spend and will have points, spare points available to them at some point. So if we put the signature talents that really make you a tank at very low level in that tree, what would happen is everyone would pick them up, right? However, I would say that around level 14, 15, when you get most classes get access to their kind of tanking stance. For the Juggernaut, it's or for the Guardian, it's the ability to utilize the shield generator. There's a stance that you go into where that shield generator starts boosting your defense. That's when you can start feeling like a tank. It will take at least to level 20 before you start seeing really noticeable changes. But the caveat there is that the game actually takes that into account. The way the content is built is we don't assume there is a tank until the 20s. And we don't assume that there's a really dedicated tank until actually even later. So while you would have trouble keeping aggro, keep in mind that the content isn't actually built even to require that.
Hey, what level do we give Guard?
Guard, which is the signature PvP ability, I think is 15, I don't know, I would have to check.
So when you get Guard as well, you can start feeling more like defending your friends in PvP and be quite good at it. But again, I don't remember. We've been moving it a little bit again for the concern that we don't want everybody to get it, otherwise it doesn't really.
Guard specifically changes quite significantly how you play a tank in PvP. You will feel very tanky as soon as you get it. The PvE impact of the ability is actually fairly small, but in PvP you turn it on and you take 50% of the target's damage.
So the upside, of course, is because we put a lot of the tanking in the talent trees, A, you can respec into it, or out of it, and B, it also means that this advanced class has more than one role. It's not like, oh, I pick that and I'm a tank forever and I will suck at DPS or anything like this. So it's pretty flexible, but the caveat is that you need to build into it. And it's a bit, you know, a healer as well, and all those advanced roles, you do need to specialize into it. All right, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yep.
One question.
About healers, actually. I've just been playing a healer, and I've noticed that you need to use the F keys a lot now to switch between the targets when you heal. Any plans on making that easier for the healers?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. Thanks very much.
Well, yeah, I don't want to make any promises at this point. We're very close to launch. Some things are in, some things are not, and we want to be careful what we're promising. Yes, there's plans. They're actually fairly high on our list, but I'm not making any promises right now.
Right. We try not to, to really contain ourselves and not try to cram as many features as we can before launch, because that was just buggy. But there will be patch and there will be new features across the board. There are a certain number of base minimum people expect, and we are hitting that for launch for sure, and above that. But there are other stuff like, for example, kind of a better interface for healers,
mouse over
healing, and all that stuff. We are definitely not opposed to it on a philosophical, ground. We want that, but we want it to work and not be buggy.
Can I just get people's possession of that before? Can you just introduce which site you're with? When you say the question. Go ahead.
Mark from the Force EU. Will there be target?
Target of my target?
Yeah.
Well, then we're going to philosophical discussions. So we are still discussing it internally. Some of us would say yes, some of them would say no. The fear is to kind of trivialize PvP, where you have one dedicated guy and everybody target him, and then it chooses who to destroy immediately. And we are like, great, that's team play. And so, discussion. Maybe. It's a very solid maybe.
Why don't you guys just arm wrestle for it right now, and we can decide? No?
Well, we're actually aligned.
That's fine. I was getting the impression that you weren't.
So bring Gabe back in.
Yeah, bring Gabe in. Whoever's disagreeing with. Okay. Next.
Question from Buff.de. My question is about some environment interaction. So
Excuse me, the compression on the video line is really high.
Okay.
But maybe Steven can repeat the question.
Steven could probably repeat the question, it would help.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Sorry.
my question is about environment interaction, like sitting on chairs and all this stuff.
Can you sit on chairs in Star Wars: The Old Republic?
Of course. Some of them. Anyway, you'll see in the next version. Oh, that's an exclusive, by the way.
That is actually, believe it or not, that's exclusive.
We started adding them because it was just silly. But this being said, it's a process. You have to go and add it, through the world, and it takes time. So we're going to start where it makes sense, and then just spread it out. So
there will be special sitting chairs.
Yeah, that's something we.
One thing we haven't talked about too much. We have some environmental features, for role players in particular. I'm thinking of what you might find in a cantina.
Like the jukebox?
Yeah.
Yes.
Chairs.
Chairs. Thank you. Do you want to talk about the jukebox?
Yeah, to be in a cantina, which is a social space, and seeing all those chairs, not being able to interact with them was bad. So we're fixing that.
You can go up on the stage and do slash dance. The jukeboxes are actually pretty cool.
The jukebox are live and
What is the
working.
jukebox?
Explain the jukebox.
you can actually buy some Jukebox tokens and just play a section of musics. Some of them are pretty funny in terms of names. And there may be other things that happen when you do that.
Yeah, there's actually all kind of nice things happening.
So, but you know, Cantina is it's a fun space for us. So we definitely try to spend a bit of polish times and adding stuff. And we are not finished with it either.
Okay.
Hi, this is Stefan from SWTOR.DK. What about other social mini-games like Pazak, pod racing, and so on?
Social mini-games like Pazak, pod racing, and so on.
It's all planned. When it will be out is, you know...
If we
wissen wir noch nicht genau.
I can tell you that it was part of what we wanted to do from pretty much day one of the project. So it makes sense. It's a fun diversion. You know, sometimes you're a bit tired of just doing questing or PvP or whatever. So being able to A, interact with the player, and B, have some interactions and little stuff with, you know, Pazak is a great example. But, you know, again, you have to implement it well. You have to implement it in a way that is very social. So those things take time. And, you know, when we had the choice between, I don't know, good PvP and Pazak, like, oh, what are we going to pick? Well,
yeah, the one mini game we're shipping with that you're definitely aware of is the space game. It's a pretty elaborate mini game, like even if we do a mini game, we don't do it half-assed. So we'll come back to that, like Pazak and these things in the future for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, in the space game, we win token at when we finish a quest and when we finish a space combat mini game. And there are only
torpedoes, yeah.
Torpedoes,
yeah. Proton torpedoes, and that's all. There will be other modification for the spaceship a bit later.
Yeah, no, there's actually already in the game. There's a few more and very useful modifications you can buy, but they are towards the end. And I won't spoil it, but they are quite important actually to survive some of the last 2 or 3 missions are extremely hard, you know, and requires an investment in your ship and new capabilities that change the gameplay a little bit. And we're not done with it, but it's one of those things where we are really waiting for you know, more feedback from players. I will see how it goes. Definitely, but that's something we can continue working on.
I'll just get to the back. Yeah. Aliens?
Add-ons.
Add-ons, sorry. Add-ons in the game. Infamous add-ons.
So not at launch. I think we've said this pretty clearly. It's something we definitely want to do, but we want to do it right. And that means measuring the impact it has on the game, setting the policy right. For example, from the combat perspective, I really don't want to see add-ons that automate combat gameplay. We will look at this when launch is completed and things have calmed down a bit. We will look at what people want, what we are willing to provide, and I think then we're going to make some interesting choices and update you at that time.
Yeah, yeah. We're not against them. It's just need to be done properly and safely.
Right? Like we totally understand that UI is a very contentious feature where everyone has their own expectations. Everyone would like to see as much customizability and the ability to rearrange things and so on. And we've done improvements to our current UI in order to address a lot of the things that people would like to see. But ultimately, there's a point where add-ons are probably the right thing to do because it allows you to really customize the way you want it to be, not what the developers have set up as a kind of a framework.
This being said, we received quite clear feedback on the current GUI. So there's already some kind of a loosening up that is planned and will happen, shortly after launch, hopefully.
I'd like to know what's at the top of the list after launch, what you want to do. So obviously there are a lot of things you want to do nice and good. So what's the first thing?
Sleep. What is the top of the list of things to do after launch?
Oh,
it's dealing with emergencies, I think.
Yeah,
that's probably the first one.
The big thing is to be.
Just so you know, he's literally looking at a list on the other side of the room right now.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to show you, but it is over there.
That's not.
In fact, the wall of crazy is right on this wall over there, and you're not going to see it.
That's why the camera is that way.
Oh, okay. Make sure there's no reflection, I think. But yeah, we're keeping, we're being trying to be smart about that, knowing that even though we've made some very large beta tests and we've been testing this for a long time, there's stuff that happens once you put a crazy amount of people at the same time and so on. So we have a budget for like really emergency, like, oh wow, we've never seen that before, just in case. But after that, stuff in the social area, I would say, guild improvement, stuff like this, where we're not quite satisfied. I mean, what we have is the base, but there's a lot of stuff like guild share bank, if we can't get it for launch and stuff like that, which are important to the player. But the game functions without it, but it's much better with it. So.
We have a plan, but as any plan, it will probably have some take casualties when it interacts with reality.
Yeah.
And that's part of the philosophy for us, is really to see, we have predictions, but I'm sure the users have their own mind. And when we get to that, we'll probably reshuffle a bit. So it would be probably not a good idea to make statements and promises right now of what we're going to do first.
It's rare that we got a big surprise coming up from feedbacks, but sometimes we do see different priorities where we're like, oh well, actually this seems much more important than something else we had planned, so we just switch them around. So we keep looking at feedbacks from the betas.
And I think it's fair to say that there's lots of plans for additional content. So more of the same stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we were talking a bit more of systems here. Obviously, as an MMO, people pay for their subscriptions. They expect service for that, and there is several content creation teams already hard at work to make sure that the content angle of things is covered.
Yeah.
Jens, you've been waiting a while, sorry.
So I'm Jens from SWTORDK, and I'd like to know regarding the socializing aspect of the game. I think it was last week at the summit where you said that you can invite people to your ship, but that it's only restricted to your group. Any plans or thoughts on expanding that to make it a bigger group?
Like to raid?
No, for socializing, like role-playing or something on the
like
ship.
Bringing your entire guild onto your tiny ship.
I mean, the ships are nice and impressive, but yeah, bringing the entire guild onto your ship, probably not a great idea. There's really not that much space in terms of, there's a nice conference room and it like seats 8 people like here. Past that, the ships are probably not the right venue right now. Are we thinking about things like guild capital ships perhaps, or conference rooms in the Senate and so on? Sure, we're thinking about it. There's some nice rooms you can definitely have guild meetings in the game right now, but they're not like gated off.
I was just thinking, whether an operation group would actually work in the ship. I don't see why not, but I haven't tried.
Yeah, I haven't tried it either. I don't know.
It would be already quite a lot of people.
You go to one of those cantinas where you can sit and select chairs and. It's awesome. There's someone in the back.
From union.org. In terms of endgame content, what do you expect to, what do when do you expect the best games to finish the endgame content of the game? First, that's a two-part question.
Okay, let's do that one first. When do we expect, in terms of endgame, the best guilds to finish, in inverted commas, the endgame content?
I'm not sure it's actually something we should even worry about. Because you will always find people that work 24/7 in shift, you know, and consuming your content in a way that is not, you know, typical. And you could try to design for this, but we'd rather design for not the average player, but, you know, the average guild that work and normally and so on, and to make sure that these people have a good experience, that they get updates at the right time and so on. Really trying to design for the exceptions is not a great idea.
That said, we have quite a bit of customizability in our operations. Like we have 3 different difficulty modes. We have the standard mode, we have hard mode, and we have nightmare mode. So there's something for the people that are looking for that additional challenge.
Oh yeah,
but as he's saying, we're not going to go out and make sweeping design changes out of a fear that someone who plays 24/7 with their group to get a server first or something like that would be too fast with that. That's not really on our mind, and we're not rewarding server firsts in any shape or form either.
Right.
Like, this is a game where we spend a lot of time making sure that there's actually a game getting to max level. That it's not a game where you can say, well, the game starts at max level. No, the game starts at level 1. And we don't want to encourage behaviors that make you rush through the world we created, the stories we created, the content we created. That's really not what we're looking for with our game.
And again, we're not going to put things that would hurt the normal player just to slow down the exceptional player that is just doing that, you know, for kicks. So that's kind of our design philosophy.
Second half of that question.
The second half is quite from there. So it's an MMORPG, so eventually everyone is going to be level 50 at some point before the next add-on, where maybe the level cap is going to be raised. But at the point where everyone is level 50, are you already planning to add some content, high-end content, above what is already available?
Are we planning to add high level, as in level 50 content, before expansions?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, we are adding all kind of content, not only in expansions, but, you know, in the normal patch schedule.
Yeah, we have a pretty good content release schedule that you're going to see after launch. We're actually launching with a lot of level 50 content. There is mission solo mission areas for level 50 in the game. There is PvP. There's a PvP objective-driven open world area in the game at level 50. We are launching with roughly 2 announced operations, I think. We have hard modes for every single flashpoint in the game, which is level 50 hard modes. So you can go at level 50 and run those flashpoints with your friends at level 50, and there's a flashpoint at level 10 and every 4 levels thereafter. So if you do the math on all of that, you add the PvP war zones, of course, which would work fine at level 50. We actually have a lot of endgame content, and we plan on continuously adding to that as part of a regular update schedule, not just expansions.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Jeremy from SWTOR.DK. Are you happy about the balance between all the classes in the game, PvP and
Georg, are you happy about the balance between all the classes in PvP and PvE? Can you ever be happy about balance?
I am.
So I'm actually fairly happy. The way to best measure this, of course, completely scientifically, is going on the forums and making sure that each class forum bitches equally about everyone else.
It's good to have a process.
We had a long. We've had almost a year of testing on the game now, So we feel actually that the balance is really, really close at this point. It'll never be perfect because, hey, A, players do things you don't anticipate. B, it's an MMO. It's not like, you know, chess where everyone has one move that they can do. Everyone has countless of abilities and so on. We feel pretty good about it. We don't think there will be any like major problems to start with, but once players get into it and really put the content over long term to the test, I'm sure there will be things that we will have to address.
You think some of the crowd control durations are too long? Any particular ones?
What was the question, sorry?
He was noticing that some crowd control duration felt too long to him, but I was wondering...
So, PvE or PvP?
What were you playing?
When there were like 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah, but do you know what you were playing, or you were being crowd controlled? Is that what your concern was? Huh? Both? Okay. He felt that like 5-6 seconds crowd control was too long. Did you notice?
So let's instead of going into details on the classes, let's talk a bit about the philosophy behind it. And it's obviously something that we've been tuning for quite a while. Almost every new build had some changes to the way we are handling crowd control. The way it works right now in the game is that you have this resolve timer. It's a little bar that appears next to your UI whenever you get controlled. And controlled is really loosely anything that makes you lose control of the direction or movement of your character. So ballistics factors into that just as well as just being stunned or lifted or any kind of these things. The way it's calibrated right now is that when you are fighting 1-on-1 against each other, if you use 2 crowd control abilities just on top of each other, the target will become immune. The immunity timer then starts ticking down. So there's a strategy to making sure that you do not hit your target too closely with your crowd control, or they will just become immune. There's the second element that every class in the game has a stun break, which clears any kind of control off them. So you need to be careful what you're using it for and when. The complication, of course, is that PvP is really one-on-one. Some of the PvP, like hardball, really encourages everyone to pile on the guy with the ball, right? We've balanced around that you go immune to it relatively fast. Are the durations too long? Partially that depends on you being in control. With your stun break, if you use your stun break on a 2-second stun, maybe you don't know what it is, maybe you don't know the other class that applied it to you, then you're probably going to eat the 8-second one, which is the long one, right after that, and then you're really out of options. So I would say a lot of it depends on how familiar you're with PvP, how familiar you're with your own character. I can tell you that the top-end players that we have almost never get control because they know what to do at the right time. We'll continue to balance that, and what makes it particularly hard, of course, is that certain objectives like hardball really, you can't balance for the ball carrier. If I balanced the game around the ball carrier, there would be no control in the game at all anymore, right? If you pick up that ball, you're kind of expected to die, unless, that's why you can throw it, right? It's the hot potato.
Not only that, but you need a supporting team to make sure they take out the crowd control, on the other side. Yeah, you cannot just grab the ball and expect by yourself to defeat the entire enemy team. So, it's easy to tweak. We have to be very careful because there's a lot of implications. Right now it seems fine. Again, not people that casually just try it for a few days, but people who've been playing it for months.
I will say this though, we're allowing PvP to start at level 10. At level 10 you certainly do not have all the options that even a level 15 has. 15, 16 is kind of the point where you have most of the PvP utilities ready. If you play at level 10, expect to be controlled and slaughtered quite a bit. And
that's a good point, where we have to balance a desire to let people experience PvP as soon as possible, let's say even from level 1, and the fact you don't have any tool as those levels, so you're not going to have a good experience, and your teammates are not going to appreciate you being the team in the first place. So 10 is a good compromise. It's a few hours of play, typical, and you have a better idea of what your character is about, but it's still a bit early. In the sense that you're missing the critical ability like guarding, and you barely have any healing if you just specialize into it, and all that stuff, so it's a tough choice for us.
The good thing is your PvP gives you XP, so that's a problem that overcomes itself over time.
You don't stay level 10, it's too long.
Okay. Anyone else?
If you gain dark side points, you go dark side level 1, level 2, and unlock new gear and stuff like that, or some cosmetic items. Is there something else for neutral level 1, neutral level 2?
The question was about whether there are going to be any neutral light side, dark side. You know what I mean? Neutral rewards.
Yeah. We always wanted to reward neutral, and we have a little bit, but we can do a better job at it for sure. It's a slightly complex problem to detect the level at which you're neutral, based on your level and so on. It's not very difficult, but it hasn't been a priority. We try to make a really good job with the dark side and the light side, and the neutrals. Well, they will have to wait a little bit longer.
The technical answer to this is if you're min-maxer, you might want to go dark or light. It's not going to hit you too hard. There's actually kind of equivalent gear for everything around it, but the light side, dark side gear really looks good.
Yeah, it's not really min-maxing. It's really for more social. Do you want the Sith eyes and all that stuff, and we try to, as much as possible, separate the role-playing aspect, like companion affections and light side and dark side, from the min-maxing, because we don't want to say if you're a tank you have to play this role-playing aspect, or if you want to craft you have to be really nice to that companion, or things like this, which are really different aspects of the game. So there's a bit of cross pollinations here, but we try to minimize it, so that you do the role-playing aspect for the role-playing aspect, not for stats.
It goes in line with the decision to not allow you to kill your companion.
A little bit.
Jens, yeah.
Just one more thing about this. You have, when you are going dark side, you can enable it that you also change in looks, that your face looks different.
Right.
Will this be recognized by other NPCs during the story? Or is this just for yourself and for others?
It's a representation of your kind of light side, dark side score. If NPCs are recognizing that part of you, they would be doing it because of that score. It's not that facial feature.
I'd like to point out that in the movies, they have a guy with a complete dark side thing as the head of the Senate, and nobody say anything. But
right, it's a purely visual option. It can be disabled if needed, and you can see that disabled as putting up your Sith disguise and somehow still making a political career within your organization. I don't know.
Yeah, you work for other people, so.
Yeah, what's complicated?
Jan again for minutter.org. I was wondering, because you said earlier there was 3 difficulty levels for dungeons, if there was going to be a different aspect for the stuff you put on those dungeons, like if, for example, the guy has the whole stuff of the whole equipment of a really high level dungeon, like nightmarish, is he going to look fiercest or prettier than the guy who just finished it in normal mode? Or
So the question was really about loot in the different levels of flashpoints. So would loot from a hard level flashpoint or a nightmare mode or whatever we're calling it.
You should have asked the question to Gabe.
I know. You know, they're asking questions about, you know, flashpoints now. But that's the question.
I won't answer, you know, in case Gabe just changed his mind and changed something. So you'll find out.
Let's say that obviously there's some kind of reward for taking on a greater challenge, right?
Yeah.
But in a visible way?
In a visible way was the question.
Probably.
It's a solid maybe.
It's a solid maybe. Like
we actually don't know. Gabe could have changed it. We don't check on that daily, so.
Changing it every day. He hasn't got much longer to change his mind. Anyone else?
Thomas from Star Wars Denmark. How many guild ranks are there?
We don't have guild ranks, am I right?
Oh.
Do we?
You mean officer?
Yeah, we have guild ranks.
I'm thinking of guild like levels.
Ah, sorry.
Yeah, guild ranks, as in officer and that sort of thing. Is it 2?
We have that. We have guild ranks with privileges that you can set in the guild interface if you're at least an officer. We also have fairly new the ability to create private chat channels. So yeah.
Do you know how many?
But how many exactly? I don't remember.
I don't know out of the top of my head.
Yeah.
A few.
I think it might be 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's some granularity there. It's not like 2 or 3.
Alright, maybe it's 4.
I've seen 4.
But you can go to the
It's 5.
There you go, it's 5.
I think it's 4 or 5, but yeah, again.
You just broke NDA.
Well, they might have gotten to the guild
Yeah.
officer or person, but you can do so.
And since the last build, color match is no more available. Do you provide something on the next version, or it will be back in the next version?
Yeah, we're discussing. I'm actually working on something, whether it make it or not, and whether we try it and we decide that's exactly the way we want it to work is still up in the air.
Yeah.
You know, right now we introduced a lot of new color scheme and new outfits actually to the game. So we wanted to see, it's an option. So a lot of people, you know, not you guys, but a lot of players never go into the option menu. So we wanted to try to get feedback, especially because we're inviting a lot of players to, you know, is a game okay for the majority of population? It's great that 10% of people are super happy because they can color match, but what about the rest? So we needed to test that. I have a philosophical issue with color matching, and is that it gives you access to some options that you have not earned yet. Right? If you think of a lot of similar systems that exist in other games, for example, like an appearance tab, once you earn something, you can use it, and that's great, right? Or let's say die, you can buy it, so earn it, you know, either by money, and then you can use it. Color match gives you access to certain colors that might have values in the eye of other players, but you never work for it. You just press a button and it is. So that's my first problem with it, essentially. The other one is, it's great for players that turn it on, but it also diminishes their reward because, you know, a lot of pants and boots don't really look very different except by colors. And once you turn it on, you never see those differences anymore, right? And so you have less of a rewarding cycle. So it's not a very good system, if you ask me. And so that's why we are working on maybe something a bit different, better. Both for the players and for the balance of the game and for the reward cycle. Now, whether we can fit it, you know, for launch or post-launch and so on, remain to be seen. It's an important thing for players, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really. We did have, we used to have a lot of very matching gear within a class, but recently we've opened a lot of new colors because, you know, that was kind of boring to always be in.
Yeah, and if you're in the beta, you haven't seen all of that yet, even.
Yeah. So it's a very good subject and something we think a lot about. It's about 5 minutes of my time to re-enable it. So but right now we really wanted the beta to give us more data than when we had before. Not to mention finding all the hot pink pants. Which is
that's another issue where that feature can potentially, when it's on, obscure the fact that there is broken content. So turning it off temporarily, definitely a good idea. Turning it off long term, that remains to be seen. It's hotly contested and discussed even within the team.
Again, there are pros and cons, and there are better ways to do this. So.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Florian for SWTORDK. Could you speak a little about the second operation?
No.
There is a second operation. There you go.
Should have asked Gabe, and then he could have told you no. But
yeah, now we look like the bad guys, but no,
that's okay.
There's a screenshot on the website, isn't there?
Yeah, kind of.
A little bit of a tease.
Yeah.
Hi, Stefan again. Is there any possibility to change the name or the appearance of an existing character?
You mean oh yeah, can you change your character's name or appearance later in the game?
Oh yeah, it's very simple. You press delete, and then you recreate it.
The other way.
Oh, you mean you don't want to use that? I see.
There's a bit of a cost to it, because you have to remake a character to level 50. No, but it's standard features. Some of them we are already working on. Some of them are planned. It will happen. I mean, it's very
it's inevitable that feature will be available at some point, but I wouldn't want to speculate on the time frame of it.
Definitely.
Obviously, customer service needs to be able to rename offensive people.
And given some of the haircut in the game, you really need to be able to change it, but not for launch.
Anything else not for launch that we can answer? Yeah, in the back.
Can you tell us how to be after a fight in PvP when we're running away from a fight?
You mean on a PvP server, or do you mean? You mean in a war zone? In a war zone. How do you get away from a fight in a war zone?
That's an interesting one.
Okay.
So, how do you get away from a fight in a war zone? Or how do you get out of combat in a war zone? Two different things.
Depend on your class.
Well, so I can tell you that the ability to kite and be kited is one of the most tested elements of the game. Like one of the biggest points for us when we're doing combat design is to very, very carefully design the ability for people to kite each other, but not do it indefinitely. And we have some very interesting classes in there that concepts that no one has done before. For example, the sniper, who is all about area denial, area control, and who's really hard to get to. He has some tools to get away when you get to him, but if you're a good player, if he didn't cash in on his range advantage and the fact that he could control your approach, he's probably going to be in a bad spot. There's a secondary element here, and you've not seen that in the current test, but it's coming up fairly soon, is we're loosening the ability to drop out of combat state a bit. It's currently really, really hard to get out of combat state, which limits certain abilities like stealth or healing. In a patch very soon, it will be significantly easier to get out of combat if you can stay basically for 10-15 seconds without getting hit and without hitting anyone. You'll drop out of combat, which will make it a bit easier to get away, let's say, from a large engagement, running away kind of thing. You're going to definitely, there's classes that can be played like a bit easier, like the Sith warrior with his leap is, really straightforward, jumping in, dealing a lot of damage. However, when facing a class like the sniper, let's say with a Jedi Knight, that's not necessarily easy. If that sniper knows what he's doing, just leaping in is probably not the right thing to do. And I think it will take players weeks, if not months, to completely figure out how that works. All I can say is that we have very, very extensively tested that particular aspect of our combat, especially in the phase that you have ranged classes that are quite powerful and melee classes, and a lot of games have problems with that.
So yeah, there's a lot of player skill involved, and you have to know your class well.
It goes really along with the philosophy that is behind the war zones and PvP in general, which is, apart from numbers, obviously, we want skill to be a deciding factor. Even more so than level or gear and so on. Does it mean a level 10 can take out a level 50? Well, that's going to be a bit hard just because of the utility involved and so on. But 2 level 10s taking on a level 50 could get ugly for the level 50. We're really trying to balance that skill is a deciding factor in Warzone matches.
That help?
What's your view on theory crafting? Do you think it's a good thing and you want to encourage it?
Is that a crew skill we put in? I didn't hear about it. The question was, what is our view on theory crafting? Do we think it's a good thing and do we want to encourage it?
We don't. I mean, no, literally, we don't. Like, even inside the studio, when people go theory craft inside, right? Whether or not they go on websites that do that or on the forums. There's a reason, for example, we don't post our patch notes on the forums. And that is, we've learned really quickly that when you do that, people talk a lot about the theoretical impact and they have no freaking clue what they're talking about.
So paper theory crafting.
I want to point out something. 1 second. We will post patch notes in the live game.
Yes, sure. Yes, this is specifically related from testing. We're not hiding them. You can get to them in the patcher, but we really find a lot of people have trouble with reading. It's hard. And that can create, you're wasting a lot of people's time. Like if 20, 30, 40 people get into heated arguments about a patch note they misread, that's wasting everyone's time, not just ours, theirs as well. And they get worked up and they make petitions and whatnot. Not helpful. What we want to have people do is play the game, and then we're totally willing to listen, and we're totally willing to look at our metrics and understand what's going on. And that's about it, all right? Like, I have to be very blunt here. I mean, you've all probably have looked at other MMO forums, and you all know that it's probably true that regardless of which class forum you go to, some other class needs nerfing, yada, yada, yada. Theories are nice, but they have absolutely no business in my office.
But, theory crafting is more and so about people trying to reverse engineer the formula of the game and so on.
They could just ask, though. I mean, literally, people have asked on the forums, and we have no problem. We're not hiding our math.
Yeah.
Right? There's no overarching. We are hiding this. We want people to figure it out. Mystery. Blah blah. No, that's not really what we're doing.
So theory crafting is fine, but theory without pure theory without trying and so on, and theoretical concern is not, because
right. I mean, I totally understand that's a fun thing to do, and that lots of people are getting a lot of entertainment value out of that, and that's totally fine with me. Just don't tell me to change anything based on your theory, because that I don't care about.
I will say that I don't think from a community point of view, it's always going to be there, and we have no problem with that. That's
actually my question was not about theory speaking, but theory crafting is totally different
yes.
from this. Theory crafting is really like people like to experience different ways of handling different techniques. It's not about discussing whether a class is cheated or has to be nerfed or anything. It's just more about knowing your character perfectly well, and is there going to be a difference from a person that has been utilizing all his skills in a different order, like for example 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1, depending what you bind, and also different like lightsaber, this one is more powerful in this order and this order. And I mean, at the end, to maximize, for example, just speaking about DPS, just to maximize your DPS, you know, is there going to be a difference between someone that has thoroughly studied what he can do and a person that is just coming and doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and just goes wrong?
Yeah, we don't have any problem with this, you know, scientific method. If you're actually empirically testing, we don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, again, it's what I was mentioning about no problem with trying to understand exactly how the math work, and therefore, you know, what in theory is the best cycle of abilities and gear, and then trying it out. That's fine. In fact, we might support it, as Georg say, like, you want to know how the math works, just ask us. But that's fine. We don't go out of our way either to make it, you know, particularly easy. It's not really a concern as far as we. And, you know, with the players that really study his class and the how to cycle through his abilities and the right orders, of course, he'll be actually a lot more proficient and efficient than a player that doesn't. I mean, just play against some of our best players, and you realize very quickly that they destroy you because they know what they're doing. And as we mentioned, that's all part of player skill, right? And really understanding the class and understanding the interaction between the talents and the gear and so on. This is great. This is part of the game.
Okay, thank you. That's very good. Anyone else? Well, we got more questions than Gabe did. That's a good sign.
One more.
Sure.
Is there for the different types of gear you can have, like weapon and armor and footwear and stuff like that, does each of those categories have one item that is the best for your class, or is that does that
no,
change for
it
your
depends
play
on your talent's choice.
So keep in mind that class in our game really doesn't mean a lot. Class means that it means a lot in the sense that you have a custom story and how you experience the game and what the overall art direction of your combat is. Advanced class tells you what roles you can fill, but ultimately, if you look at item stats, they are going towards a role, right? If you're a healer, even if you're DPS, you might be playing a trooper that is a bit more stationary, has a lot of cast time abilities, and then certain ratings or stats, for example, alacrity, which speeds up cast time abilities, become more interesting. So when you're itemizing, you're itemizing towards a role or towards your particular play style, and so it's impossible for us, in fact, to limit based on itemization based on class. There has to be variety.
So, you know, we have kind of a base idea of what is a good piece of gear for a specific role within an advanced class, within a class. We also know that it's very likely that players will find slightly more optimized combination of gear, especially at, you know, really high level where you have access to many more ratings and many more like subtlety. And yeah, they will find different combinations that they prefer that work better with their style of playing.
So on top of that, and those that have been played in the beta have probably noticed that we now support the ability to extract mods from certain types of items, right? Which gives you another playing field to maybe keep the appearance you want, that sniper rifle that you really like, your trusty rifle from level 10, you can actually modify it, and as your character grows and you try different styles, you could still keep that rifle in.
In fact, and that will explain some stuff you see. We made some tweaked crafting recently for launch, and as a particular mod item modifications that control most of the ratings, we understand that even though when you level up, it's not the most useful mods. You much prefer the ones that actually increase the level of your weapon or increase the level of your armor. But at maximum level, that particular thing, I think we call it enhancement, if I'm not wrong, that has most of the budget for rating is going to be very valuable, because that's the one you're going to change the most when you try different trees of skills and things like that. So for this reason, it's actually you don't have one crafting profession that control all the different modifications, because then that's the only crafting that you would craft you would care at max level, because that's where you modify things. So the one that controls enhancement has actually is we understand that there will be a higher value, and then we've conceived it as such.
There's a completely random and off the side, but since we've not talked about that and people still kind of expect it, as it stands for now, we will not allow you to switch advanced classes at launch.
Correct.
So we have changed our mind again.
For the last time, this time.
Maybe. Eventually we'll probably allow it, but we've decided for launch that after careful testing, it is currently not required.
But there is a much better way and much better explanation when you do pick your advanced class, because until recently it was kind of an obscure dialogue and like, and you're done, and you don't really know what you've picked.
You can now actually preview skill trees and these kind of things before you make that choice.
It's much clearer, and but it remains a really important choice in your character, so it won't have to be done lightly. And we'll probably change our mind at some point, but not for launch.
This time for real.
For real, this time.
I can't see your hand. Has anyone got no fingers across here? No. So you're sure? Not changing for launch? There we go. Alright, anyone else? Aha! Okay.
Will we have a combat log for launch?
I knew it! Will we have a combat log for launch, Georg?
No. Wow, shocking. So let me explain a bit. So we had combat log. Well, we had a partially working combat log in game for a long time. But the realization that we've hit is the combat log in our game doesn't work. And here's why. You're fighting, compared to, let's say, your standard MMO, you actually fight like roughly 3 times the number of enemies. You're also within your normal GCD doing roughly 2-point-something times the number of events, like damage dealing or applying effects. And if you take these numbers and then factor in people fighting near you, allies fighting, and so on, that combat log gets really, really unwieldy. In fact, down to the point where you have like 200 lines for like 10 seconds of combat or something in a war zone. And now it's not helping anyone anymore. And so after careful deliberation and testing, turning it off and seeing how people react, and we decided, no, we're not going to have this on for launch because it's actually not helping anyone. It's causing problems all over the place with its volume. And we'd rather do it right.
Right.
So we have some plans to actually do something that is a bit more useful to players that really want to see the numbers. The people that really care about the combat log, and believe me, we know all about this, people running operations want to be able to assess the quality of their gameplay, how they can get better, assess the quality of their group, and so on. They're not going to get anything out of the log as it was in that shape because of the volume problem. So instead we're going to go back to the drawing board with this and do it right. And that means for launch there's no combat log.
And it will hurt, the theory crafting, and for sure, but in tests, we do a kind of good job, I think, of describing what stats do and what's better and what's not in terms of gear. So it's acceptable, but yeah, we need a combat log, and it will come.
Right? As a combat guy, am I happy about it? No. But I do think it's the right call to make. Like, putting something that doesn't really work and that causes trouble for the game, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
several parts you have to collect to put it together to get well some kind of race car or mega thought about through things. So
I see a lot of hand waving, but I can't understand you.
And then you say, well,
are you thinking of armor sets, or are you thinking of like weapons?
I think single. It could be armor,
okay.
Or it could be a weapon.
Are there going to be any items which essentially need to be put together from a series of parts that you would collect as separate items, I guess?
I'm pretty sure it's called crafting. So yes, but also we have the item modification system, which is a lot of that, where some items, in fact, the majority of items after a certain level, and especially items that come from group play, like flashpoint and operations and so on, it is made of parts with different stats on them, and so you can swap them around and play with them. And the differences in the later version, including the current beta, you can actually swap them in and out. Before that, they were destroyed, when you swap them out, which was not great because you couldn't really play and experiment with them. But now it's a lot better, where you may find a pair of shoes and you don't really like them, but there's one of the modifications there that you can pull out and put even in your weapon if you wanted. So there's
the infamous example of where you take the slave girl bikini and you swap the tanking mods into it, and you run off into an operation, and you kind of can do that. I mean,
with female characters.
Yeah, with female characters. We tested it on male Twi'leks, it didn't work so good, but it
was interesting.
Yeah, you'll have to put in a bit more work into it, right? Because you'll have to find those the right mods that you want, put them in there.
And I think that's a good point. I mean, our system has a lot of flexibility, and you can actually look a lot different from other people. Like as a Jedi Knight, you could put on smuggler or even trooper's gear that you modify to actually be really good gear and the best gear. But the tech works, right? We are not. We won't give a lot of tools to the players to look the way they want, but it's not free. It's also part of something you do to distinguish yourself. So it's like a mini objective you put on yourself, and we think it's important. It's not different from other games where you can get a different mount that look a lot cooler, but and it does the same thing, but you have to work for it. And we have the same kind of philosophy where a lot of things are possible, but they might be a little bit harder than just picking up the first thing you find and put it on and just caring about the stats. So it's in there, but there's some effort involved.
There's enough room on the stats that I don't think people have to be too elitist about it. There's a lot of additional ways of getting stats, like datacrons, for example. There's set bonuses on the top end gear, some really cool ones actually, so wherever people want to get their budget from, that's pretty fine with us. If you're spending a lot of time with the game, obviously you'll probably end up with higher stats. The design is that skill is mostly the deciding element, but if it comes down to obviously two players with equal skill facing off, then the stats will probably make the difference.
Well, but you'll never find two perfectly equal players,
that's a theory, of course, yes.
And there's a lot of different source of items. Even the space game give you items, and social give you atom appearance, and light side, dark side give you access to items, and Flashpoint have different items from world boss, which are different from operation and so on. So and PvP obviously give you items. So there is a players that just play the quests and kind of solo through their games, and they will get access to a certain number of items. But other players that are interested in many different aspects of the game will get their reward as well.
And they're really segmented, like certain appearances, like let's say the Sand People outfit, there's one way to get it, right? If you're not into that particular way, you're not going to look like a sand person. Right. That's just how it works. Some of it can be traded, but a lot of it is also kind of has its niche in the game, and you can decide to pursue that or not. That's your choice.
I forgot to mention that crafters have a pretty big role to play, so you have to rely on other players to get that particular appearance you really wanted, which is good. You know, it's not necessarily easy, and you may have to talk to other people. I know
there's quite a bunch of appearances actually that crafters are the primary source of. They can create the appearance. People can then get the mods that they put into the appearance to make it work for them. Yeah. But they can get them from crafters, they can get them from doing flashpoints and whatever else the sources are, right? Bottom line, tons of different choices to like kind of build together the gear that you want.
Alright, we've got to get out of here pretty soon, so have you got one more, or is it super quick?
No, it's not quick.
It's not quick, what is it?
No, okay, will there be legendaries like in World of Warcraft, or items that where you need the help from your whole guild to get this item? And
some of the stuff that guys were talking about there is things that you would need your whole, well maybe not your whole guild, depending on the size of your guild, but like to do operations or anything similar, you certainly need a lot of people.
Are you talking about very rare items that are, you know, legendary in quality and rareness and so on? Well, you know, talking to you about it would be like a spoiler, so we won't tell you.
What I can tell you is that there is occasionally elements in the game where you will in fact have to collaborate with other players if you want that benefit. Datacrons, for example, there's some Datacrons that require groups of 2 or even 4 working collaboratively to get them. Yeah. Right? Sometimes it's just easier in a group of 2, you know, you could figure out how to get to that Datacron, or you could duel that Jedi Knight and he force pushes you up there and then you're grappling it back. But
we do want to leave, you know, a few things for your spoilers, and so people, when they discover it, they're like, wow, I'm the first guy who knew that this item existed. This is great. So
there's still some secrets in the game, even with our pretty long PR cycle and everything.
And betas.
Yeah. Like I can tell you, there's stuff in the game that no one on the test servers has ever seen.
Okay. One last
very quick.
When you play the storyline, when you end up being 50, is it over, or is it continuing after the 50 storyline for one class?
Star Wars wasn't over when they shot that first Death Star. What we mean with that is you have a nice finale in the story. There's a villain that you fight in most cases, and we build a BioWare-style finale into the story, but we're also not giving you entire closure, right? Like you've won this battle, but the war goes on. In fact, the war just starts at the end of your storyline. And there's an entire planet in Ilum at the end of the game that happens after, like chronologically, the quests and everything on that planet open up after you defeat like the finale for your class. And obviously, ongoing content and whatever we do afterwards will continue to have story elements with it because, hey, we're making these kind of games, right?
That's really got to be it because we do have to get on the bus, get to the restaurant. So, thank you very much, Georg Emanuel. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Make sure the camera doesn't go over there.
Tell the camera. Tell the camera. Let's go. Oh, 1h08, ouais.